In the quaint town of Elmsfield, life moved at a gentle pace. Nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, the town was a haven for those seeking a simpler existence. At the heart of Elmsfield was a picturesque main street lined with charming shops and cafes, where locals gathered to catch up on the latest gossip. The townspeople were known for their warm and welcoming nature, always eager to lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. Detective Richard Wright had recently moved to Elmsfield, seeking solace after a tumultuous career in the city. The strain of investigating high-profile crimes had taken its toll, and he yearned for a quieter life. Richard quickly became a fixture in the tight-knit community as he settled into his new role at the local police station. He found the slower pace of small-town life refreshing, with most of his days spent handling minor disputes and the occasional theft. Richard had rented a cozy cottage near the edge of town, surrounded by a well-tended garden filled with vibrant flowers. Every morning, he would sit on his porch, sipping freshly brewed coffee, and bask in the serenity of his new surroundings. The sunrises were particularly breathtaking, with hues of pink and orange casting a warm glow over the town. As the weeks passed, Richard gradually became acquainted with the locals, learning their stories and forming connections. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss in Elmsfield. Whispers of strange occurrences began to surface, though no one seemed to know any concrete details. The odd incidents started subtly, easily dismissed as mere coincidences or figments of overactive imaginations. However, as time went on, the peculiar events became more pronounced and impossible to ignore. To Richard's surprise, these anomalies took place at exactly 3:13 p.m. every day, without fail. The townspeople began to refer to this unsettling phenomenon as the hidden hour. As the newly appointed detective, Richard felt it was his duty to investigate these occurrences. Initially, the incidents appeared to be unrelated: a glass shattering in a local cafe, a sudden burst of static on the radio, and unexplained gusts of wind blowing through the town square. Yet, as Richard delved deeper into the mystery, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was a connection between them all. Determined to uncover the truth, Richard spent countless hours sifting through police reports and interviewing witnesses. He painstakingly mapped out each incident, searching for patterns or clues that might shed light on the enigma. It wasn't long before he discovered that these strange events were not a recent development. In fact, they had been occurring for decades. As the days turned into weeks, the tension in Elmsfield grew palpable. The townspeople, once welcoming and friendly, became increasingly on edge. Conversations were hushed and guarded, as though everyone was afraid of what they might inadvertently reveal. The once vibrant town began to take on a darker, more sinister atmosphere. Despite the mounting pressure, Richard remained resolute in his pursuit of the truth. He was convinced that there was a logical explanation for the bizarre events plaguing the town, and he was determined to find it. Little did he know that the answer he sought would be more extraordinary than anything he could have imagined. Richard's investigation led him to the local library, where he hoped to find historical records that could provide some insight into the town's strange past. As he delved into the archives, he discovered that Elmsfield had a long history of peculiar events, all occurring at the same time each day. It seemed as though the town had always been haunted by the enigmatic hidden hour. The more he researched, the more he found himself drawn to the legend of a powerful artifact, the Kronos amulet, which was rumored to be hidden somewhere in Elmsfield. According to the legend, the amulet had the power to manipulate time and was once used by an ancient order to protect the town from an unknown threat. The amulet was said to be the key to breaking the time loop that plagued the town. Intrigued, Richard sought out an expert in the town's history, an elderly woman named Agnes. She was well known as the town's unofficial historian and was more than happy to share her knowledge of the legend. As they discussed the amulet, Agnes revealed that the order had disbanded centuries ago, and the amulet had been lost in the process. Determined to locate the Chronos amulet and break the curse of the hidden hour, Richard decided to search for clues to its whereabouts. He meticulously retraced the steps of the ancient order, poring over cryptic texts and examining long-forgotten landmarks. As he ventured further into the unknown, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. As Richard pieced together the puzzle, he began to suspect that someone, or something, was watching him. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he felt a constant presence lurking just beyond his field of vision. The feeling only intensified as he drew closer to the truth, and he wondered if he was being led down a dangerous path. Despite the unsettling feeling of being watched, Richard pressed on, determined to solve the mystery of the hidden hour. His search led him to an ancient crypt hidden deep within the woods on the outskirts of Elmsfield. As he descended into the darkness, the air grew colder and the sense of foreboding grew stronger. The crypt seemed to be the source of the town's affliction. Navigating the dimly lit corridors, Richard came across a series of intricate murals depicting the history of the ancient order that once guarded the Chronos amulet. The murals revealed that the order had been betrayed from within, and in the aftermath, the amulet's power had been harnessed to trap the town in the time loop. As Richard ventured deeper into the crypt, he finally found the resting place of the Chronos amulet. The artifact was encased in an ornate pedestal surrounded by glowing symbols. As he approached, he could feel the energy radiating from it. It seemed to beckon him, as if it recognized that he was the one who could break the curse. Summoning his courage, Richard reached out and took the amulet. As soon as his fingers brushed the surface, he felt an intense surge of power coursing through his body. Suddenly, the crypt began to tremble, and the walls around him started to crumble. The eerie presence that had been following him made itself known, materializing from the shadows. The entity was a malevolent force, a remnant of the ancient order that had sought to harness the power of the Chronos amulet for their own nefarious purposes. It had been waiting, biding its time, for someone to rediscover the amulet and break the loop. With a twisted grin, the entity revealed that the only way to break the cycle was for Richard to sacrifice himself, just as the prophecy had foretold. Richard stared at the malevolent entity in disbelief. Could it be true? Was the only way to save Elmsfield to sacrifice his own life? The responsibility weighed heavily on him, but he knew that he couldn't let the town remain trapped in the loop any longer. Desperation and determination fueled him, pushing him to make the ultimate decision. With the Chronos amulet in his possession, Richard returned to Elmsfield, his mind racing with the implications of his choice. He found himself at the local church, seeking solace and answers in the quiet sanctuary. As he sat alone in the dimly lit nave, his thoughts were interrupted by the church's old priest, Father Thomas. Sensing Richard's distress, Father Thomas offered a listening ear and wise counsel. Richard hesitantly shared his story and the terrible choice he had to make. To his surprise, Father Thomas revealed that he was aware of the ancient order and the prophecy surrounding the Chronos amulet. He had been waiting for someone like Richard, the chosen one who would finally end the curse. Father Thomas provided guidance, revealing an ancient ritual to channel the amulet's power and break the time loop. However, the cost would be great. Richard would have to willingly give his life, allowing the energy to consume him, and in doing so, release Elmsfield from its temporal prison. As the moment of truth approached, Richard gathered his friends and loved ones in the town square, sharing with them the knowledge he had gained and the sacrifice he was prepared to make. The people of Elmsfield were shocked and saddened, but they understood the gravity of the situation and offered their support, knowing that this was the only way to save their town from the endless cycle of the hidden hour. Richard stood in the center of the town square, his friends and loved ones encircling him. It was time to perform the ancient ritual, and the air was thick with anticipation and anxiety. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the faces of the gathered crowd. The hidden hour was fast approaching, and Richard knew that there was no turning back now. Father Thomas began the ritual, his voice steady and strong as he recited the ancient incantations. The Chronos amulet, now hanging around Richard's neck, began to glow with a pulsating energy. Richard could feel the power coursing through him, and as the moment drew nearer, he whispered his final farewells to his friends and family. As the clock struck the hidden hour, Richard felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had ever experienced. The amulet's light intensified, illuminating the entire town square. Time itself seemed to slow down as the energy built to a crescendo, and for a brief moment, Richard felt as if he could see every possible outcome of his decision, every timeline stretching out before him. Then, in an instant, the energy was released. A brilliant flash of light engulfed the square, and a shockwave rippled through the very fabric of time. Richard's body disintegrated into a cascade of shimmering particles, the energy of the Chronos amulet consuming him completely. The townspeople watched in awe as the remnants of Richard's sacrifice coalesced into a luminous orb, hovering above the town square. Slowly, the orb dissipated, its energy dispersing into the night sky like 1,000 tiny stars. As the last vestiges of the orb vanished, the town found itself at the dawn of a new day. The curse had been broken, the time loop was no more. But the cost had been great, the life of their dear friend and hero, Richard. The town was forever changed after that night. The citizens mourned the loss of Richard, who had bravely given his life to free them from the time loop. A memorial was erected in the town square, an eternal reminder of the hero who had made the ultimate sacrifice to save them all. Years passed, and the memory of Richard's sacrifice became a cornerstone of the town's identity. Each year, on the anniversary of the hidden hour, the citizens gathered in the town square to remember their fallen hero and the gift of time he had given them. They would look up at the stars, the same stars that had absorbed the energy of Richard's final act, and whisper words of gratitude for the life they were now able to live. And as the years turned into decades, the legend of the hidden hour and the brave soul who had broken the cycle became a story passed down through generations. The town's children grew up knowing the tale of Richard, the detective who had uncovered the truth, their eyes wide with wonder as they listened to the story of a hero who had given everything to save them from the never-ending loop of time.